Hello again and welcome. Michael Pizzolla here, and I'd like to welcome you to the 2017 Breeders' Cup Value Capping Video Rant. I'm very excited to be with you today to discuss the 2017 Breeders' Cup, which will be held on November 3rd and 4th at Del Mar. This is also the first rant since the release of the ValueCapper software. And for those of you who don't know me, what's all this? Michael Pizzolla, ValueCapper. My name is Michael Pizzolla. I am the author of the best-selling book, Handicapping Magic, co-author of the classic book, Pace Makes the Race. I'm the creator of the original online racing forum, publisher of the Post Time Daily 2.0, and the Black Magic family of software, culminating in ValueCapper, which is Black Magic Software 2.0. This is the first rant that I have done since the launch just a couple of months ago of the ValueCapper software and the ValueCapper comprehensive training course. And I've got to tell you, I am gobsmacked by the scores and stacks of amazing testimonials about scores and about how people are finding it extremely easy to use, to find value bets, and almost as importantly, to avoid the bad bets. Those of you who don't know about ValueCapper, want to find out more, you can go to ValueCapper.com, and there I have for you a free 4-part, full-length, very instructive video course called the ValueCapping Revolution Basic Training Course, which will give you a complete background into value capping. Now, why do I talk so much about value capping? Because it is a new way of looking at this great horse racing game that we play. It is a way that's tailored to the modern game. If you haven't noticed, the public has gotten really good. So the process of value capping is less about trying to predict the outcome of the race and more about looking at where the value might be. And similarly, these rants are not about picks. It's about the process of finding good value bets. You can use the principles of value capping and the value capping framework no matter what method you use, no matter if you use software or not. If you're using ValueCapper, that kind of is all built into the software, so you do it automatically. But listen, there are 5 basic tenets to the value capping framework. You need to find horses that you like, that the public shouldn't, preferably running against flawed horses. And by flawed horses, I mean horses that will look good to the public, but really aren't so good, like a horse taking a negative drop in class or a hard race last out. You have to wait for your price. And finally, you need to have a felt sense so that it almost feels as if the bet makes you, yes, this one, not that one. And as I said, this process assists you in finding good potential value plays and keeps you out of races you shouldn't be in, ineffective bets. So, for example, in this year's Breeders' Cup, there are many races with that are filled with foreign horses. Nothing against foreign horses that come from Ireland and Great Britain and France and Peru and all kinds of things. Wonderful. Champion horses, wonderful horses. Here's the problem. I am a pace handicapper. I cut my teeth, 30 years ago now with a pace group, and it was dealt with incremental velocity. Now, incremental velocity, which makes up pace handicapping, is dependent on having internal fractions. A lot of those foreign horses, they just don't have them. So in some cases, I have 6, 7, 8 horses in a field I don't have any ratings for. Lottery. I have to pass those races. Now, that's an easy one. More subtle is a race like the Breeders' Cup Classic. Okay, so the first 2 tenets of value capping, bet horses you like. So in the Breeders' Cup Classic, here's a spoiler alert. horse racing fans. Gunrunner and Arrogate are the best horses in the race. They're also at the top, as I'll show you in just a minute, of the ValueCapper line. Big deal. There was a discussion on the Wizards Forum, which is a discussion group forum of people who use Blackmagic and ValueCapper and so forth, about what about West Coast, because it took some line from Penn National and so forth. Well, if you give West Coast its lines, okay, it comes up third. And guess what? Now you've got Gunrunner, Arrogate, and West Coast, the three morning line favorites. So yes, Gunrunner and Arrogate are horses you like, but the public shouldn't. No, the public should. Yeah, you want to go searching, and we'll deal with it. There's a horse called Pavel and all the rest. So if this were just about picking horses, I would just, I'd do a 30-second video. Okay, in the fourth race on Saturday, the juvenile fillies, the 8-horse Piedi Bianchi looks good. And in the filly and mare sprint, the 6th race, I think I'm going to go with the 14-horse and, move on from there. But I don't think that's helpful. If they both run up the track, and this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Or if they win, oh, this guy's great, and I wonder what they'll have next time. Doesn't do anything for you except the immediate, I cashed or I didn't cash. And that's, I don't share with you on that level. That's not to say that I've been very, very fortunate. I just mentioned Arrogate. Last year, the 2016 Travers Stakes, I did one of these video rants, and guess what? I showed you how Arrogate looked great in the software and that I was going to bet it. And then I showed you the tickets because the horse paid $25.40, won by 14 lengths. Does that happen all the time? No. On a specific day? Are you kidding me? And how about last year's Breeders' Cup Rant, where I gave you the price and at the time was the 6-horse Champagne Room. Now, Champagne Room is running in this year's Breeders' Cup. She doesn't look so good in the race, as I'll show you. But last year, also in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, she paid $69.20. It's still on YouTube. Go look. I say, I'm going to have to get 14, 15 to 1 on the horse. And, I think 33 to 1 is more than enough. But I never know when these opportunities are going to come up. And as I will mention to you, when you look over my shoulder and we'll go through some races, it's like a game of cards, a game of poker. You play the hand you're dealt. Well, this is the Breeders' Cup this year. This is the hand I'm dealt. I am going to show you, and this is the first time ever, I am showing the use of the ValueCapper software live with live races before the fact. We'll go through them. I'll show you how I pick races that are complete passes. I'll show you races that are speculative. I'll show you races as a nod to the racing fan. I got to bet these races. Some recreational bets that are possible. And then 2 or 3, what I think will be solid value plays. So if you're ready, come on and look over my shoulder. I'll go through the races from Del Mar, November 3rd and 4th, 2017, the 2017 Breeders' Cup with the ValueCapper software. Okay, so let's get right into the Breeders' Cup races. And we're going to start with the races from Friday, November the 3rd, 2017. Now, I'm going to make this kind of brief because, well, frankly, there are a bunch of races that I am just going to pass. For example, the first Breeders' Cup race on Friday is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. This is the 6th race at Del Mar on Friday. Look, you don't really need to see the big red sign there that says 6 unknowns to know that this is going to be a very tough race. And by unknowns, I mean, look, most of the ratings from ValueCapper, from the Blackmagic software, is pace-based. And there are a bunch of horses that look like this. Now you're talking. There are no internal fractions from the Newmarket, Tipperary, Ascot, and so forth races in Great Britain. And this Irish horse, it was running at Newmarket and Curragh. And there are a bunch like this. Happily, which is the Aidan O'Brien trained. He's also trained the 10. They have the top turf breeding in the race according to our turf numbers. So when I don't have the ability to assess a horse, I'm just not going to make a serious bet in the race. It's a pass race. And in fact, on the ValueCapper screen, the value advisor says, consider passing. Okay, so I'm going to show you this warts and all. This is as I'm sitting down several days in advance of the Breeders' Cup. Thank you very much to the Jockey Club and Equibase for getting these files up in advance so that we fans can really have a go at these races. It's just wonderful work on your part. Thank you. So I'm just not going to spend now. Some people will say, well, look at the top there, and you've got this horse in the blue, VIP Plus, the 6 Orvolution, and the 8 Significant Form. Well, maybe. I mean, they both ran in the same race last time, as I recall. I think it was Miss Grillo. Yes, there it is, at Belmont, which Significant Form won, and you might say, well, you only beat Orvolution by a couple of lengths. That might be a good play, not with 6 unknowns in the race. So it's a pass. Moving on to Del Mar, race 7 on Friday, November 7th, the Las Vegas Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Now look, we are often faced with a race where there is a horse that you don't really want to bet and you don't really want to bet against. And that's the case with More Spirit. Now, you might say there's a flaw with More Spirit, and you'll see that it's listed as an anti-value horse because it's on a layoff. Well, yes and no. I mean, if looking at its other layoffs, it's won twice after layoffs. And, you know, I'm sure Mr. Baffert knows how to get a horse ready after a layoff and so forth. So I think you've got to look at this race in 2 ways. One, More Spirit is ready, in which case he's probably going to, you know, be right up there, win, finish second, and so forth. Second is maybe the horse just isn't ready. Okay, and if not, then it opens up the race. By that I mean those other horses that are above the red line have a shot. And this is a highly pressured race. And what that means is that there are a lot of horses that want the lead. And we see 3 horses that like to close. The 1, Iron Fist, the 10, Practical Joke, and the 5, Awesome Slew. Awesome Slew is also right up third on the line. It's a VIP, meaning that it's a horse we kind of like, 7-1. The public shouldn't like him, 16-1. I just won the Grade 3 ACK Stakes at Churchill. You know, I would say this would be a speculative bet. It certainly has the right running style. If I were to look, I certainly would use the 6 in Exactas, probably use this 2 there just because of the price. If this were not Breeders' Cup and there weren't such enormous money in the pools and, you know, just bananas long shots all over, I would be passing by this race pretty quickly. You know, I don't think this is a solid bet. I do, however, think if Awesome Slew went off, I don't know, 15, 20-1, somewhere in that range, I would take a small bet on him and have an exacta and trifecta 5-2-6 box. I'm leaving out a lot of good horses in this case. But as I said, I think More Spirit is just not worth a bet. I think it's going to be bet down. The morning line favorite maker makes it the favorite at 3-1. I think this horse is going to go more off at 8-5. So it would, in a normal day, this would be a very easy pass for me. Speaking of pass races, Del Mar Race 8, which is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. And once again, we have 6 unknowns, 6 horses with no ratings. The 1, the 3, the 5, the 6, the 7, the 14, Irish horses, English horses, French horses. Lovely country, lovely people. But unfortunately, I can't get pace ratings on those races. Now, you might say, well, one of those colts is the 16 is going to be and also eligible. Maybe he won't get in. True enough. But you've got Mendelssohn with no ratings. You've got Raja Singh with no ratings. You've got Sands of Mali with no ratings. You've got James Garfield, no ratings, and a very short term. Massar, no ratings. This is not a race for me to bet. Now, again, if you want to go, hog wild and you want to have fun and you want to gamble, you've decided I'm going to have a recreational day. Yeah, fine. Bucks at 13, 8, 2, 12, and some kind of exotic. But honestly, as a serious betting race, this is not it. Much more common on a day-to-day basis is a race that looks like Del Mar Race 9, which is the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff. Now, this is a race where I think we do have a solid sense of the contenders and so forth. And here, ValueCapper has the 4 right on top, and then followed by the 2 and the 6, and there's a gap down to the 5, and then there's the 8. Look at that, and you'll see immediately the problem. Not a problem, but the top 4 horses in my line in ValueCapper are the top 4 morning line favorites. So most likely there's just not going to be a shot in this race. Now you might say, well, how about this 8-horse Romantic Vision? Because it is, after all, a value investment potential because it's 6-1 going to 10-1, 15-1 on the morning line. And I would say, sure, if you want to, as, the ValueCapper price, which is kind of a target price to get, says 9-1. I wouldn't bet this horse at less than 15-1. I've got 4 horses above it. The 2 and the 6, you might say, are on layoffs, but they've both shown to be excellent after layoffs. So I don't see a reason to go all the way down there. I think the public has the right horses in this race, and I just don't see value showing up. Now, as I always urge you on big days, look at the undercards. And by the way, not just at Del Mar, which is good, but also the others, the other tracks that are running on Breeders' Cup Day. Again, a lot of people come out because it's Breeders' Cup and they just throw money at the windows. And they can really overbet horses that don't deserve that kind of support. So you can find decent overlays on the board. Here's one from the undercard on Friday, November the 3rd. And it's a very simple race. This is a 7-furlong race at Del Mar. It is a highly pressured race, means there's a lot of horses that want the lead. The 2-horse City Light, that's the morning line, is going to be one of the morning line favorites. Prime Issue is going to be up there. Boy Howdy is going to be up there. The 1, 2, 4, and 11 look like the horses that are going to be up at the front. And right on the top of the ValueCapper line is a gelding called New Karma. And this is a horse that has some good closes, has some good late fractions, and I would happily bet this at around 10-1. It's top of my line. I don't know what. I would imagine this chief of staff is another deep closer. They're never going to bet this horse coming. They're going to see Fresno and Emerald, and they're just not going to bet it. But this, to me, it seems like a really good value bet. Looks like a prep race at the 6.5 furlong on the turf at Santa Anita last out. Going back to 7 furlongs, it's only had 2 races at Del Mar. It's won one and showed in the other. This is a solid bet. Again, 10-12-1, absolutely. The source goes off at 5-1. I'm not betting it. Why? Because the price isn't there. This is value capping, not how clever can you be at picking horses. It's a very different game. And so if I do get my price, I'll bet the horse. Yeah, I'll have the 9 in there. There's another horse in the race that's going to be a big price with some good closes, and that's the 6. So sure, I'll bet the 7. I'll have it hooked up with the 6 and the 9 in exactas and maybe a trifecta box. Maybe use that 2 right in the middle of it, because the 2, see, it's in bold print there. That means it's the fulcrum, and they show up often in exactas. So there's an example of an undercard race that I think at Del Mar, now that I see that I don't really have any solid bets in the Breeders' Cup races, that may be my one solid bet at Del Mar. All right, so let's look at the Friday races, the Friday Breeders' Cup races, which is November 4th. And we start at the 4th race at Del Mar, the 14 Hands Winery Breeders' Cup Fillies. Now, the morning line favorite is the 7. Now, this 7 is 3 for 3 at a Lifetime. And it's 2 for 2 and wins at Del Mar. It's 1 for 1 at the distance. This is a horse that's going to be bet. If you'll notice, it just won the Chandelier at Santa Anita, which is a grade 1 race. Interestingly enough, the ValueCapper Software puts another horse that came out of the Chandelier, the horse that finished, filly rather, that finished 3rd to Moonshine Memories, right at the top of the line. And that filly is the 8, Piedi Bianchi, white feet in Italian. Okay. And it's got a lot of things to like. It is 6 to 1 on the ValueCapper odds line, 16 to 1 on contention, meaning that I think it's going to be a price based on what the public should do. I see that the morning line is 15 to 1. I would gladly take this at 10 to 1, and I would box the 8 with the 7, because the horses out of the same race last time sometimes, finish and they just flip. So I'd have an 8-7 box, an 8-7 straight. Probably use this 9 in there as another horse out of the Chandelier. There's another long price in the mix, Blonde Bomber. I think I will use that in exotics as well, but certainly I'm going to be looking at Piedi Bianchi. The mile and 16th, it's only got one race at a mile and 16th, and that was in that Chandelier. Didn't do too badly. It was 4 wide and so forth. Before that, I think the crowd will say, well, really, the only win that this filly has is a maiden win, and not only a maiden win, but it was at 5 furlongs at Del Mar. And, this is not a champion. But then again, the other side of that coin is that it, was only a half length out of the Del Mar debutante. And if memory serves me, that was Moonshine Memories that won the Del Mar debutante. Let's see how good my memory is. Yes. You see that down there? So they will further look and say, well, Moonshine Memories beat Piedi Bianchi in the Chandelier and also in the Del Mar debutante. They'll dismiss the horse. We'll get 10, 15, maybe 20 to 1. I will bet it very happily. Moonshine Memories can beat it again. I don't care. I think at that price, it would be a very clear, easy, simple value bet. Unlike the next race, this is the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. It's 5 furlongs on the turf. Always a tricky distance. Now, remember I showed you that race that looked nice and clear, and there were 3 horses that were clearly up there at the top? There are like 10 horses above random. Not only that, the line begins at 8 to 1. 8 to 1, 9 to 1, 9 to 1, 10 to 1, 10 to 1, 11 to 1. Oh, my good Lord. So, and on top of that, you've got 3 horses with no ratings. So this is a lottery. I mean, Could I bet Richard's Boy because it's at the top of the line? Sure. Maybe a complete recreational bet. I'd be better served by getting a nice cup of green tea or coffee and waking up for some of the later races. I guess not with any kind of serious money. Totally recreational. This is really a pass race for me. So I'm not going to pass them all, because there is another race, the 6th race, which is the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. Now look, there's lots of speed in this race, so that's why it's called highly pressured. If we were to look at the acupressure, you see all those horses there, Unique Bella and By the Moon, and Proper Discretion's going to be up there, and so forth. A whole bunch of horses that are fillies and mares that are going to be, vying for the lead. So in those races, I like to look for a horse that comes off the pace, right? This is Pace Handicapping 101 before we had all these fancy numbers. Well, there are 2 acupressure closers in the race, one of them being the 14 horse, Amy's Mesa. Now, let's take a little closer look at Amy's Mesa. First of all, right on top of the line is the 11, Unique Bella. It's the 9-5 favorite. If you look at it, it's just won 5 wins. It just had 5 wins in a row. She's only had 1 second, and that's when she had a bad start back in June. I mean, she looks like a champion filly. She, quote unquote, should win this race. But by her numbers, she isn't overwhelming. In fact, I have tied at the top of the odds line. See, at 7-1, I have the 14, one of those closers, Amy's Mesa. And if we take a closer look, now, she is on a layoff. And recently there's been a long discussion on the Wizards Forum, which is a wonderful forum with some really, really sharp value cappers who discuss things. And, there was recently a really good discussion on there about layoffs and whether it's, you should bet layoff horses, you shouldn't. Well, there's no set answer to that. It has to do with place on the line and price. And I like to see how a horse, or in this case a filly, that I'm looking to bet, how they do after layoffs. Let's take a look. The last layoff showing between December of 2016 and June of 2017, this filly came out and romped, ran away with it. In a layoff between January and 2016 and November 2016, the horse missed by 3/4 of a length. So in other words, this is a runner that I have no problem with its ability to run well after layoff. I've got it second on the odds line. It's a closer. It's got some nice late fractions. I think the public will see this as a Canadian horse. It's got 4 wins, and nothing against Canadian horses. In other words, how do I put this? There is a sense that Woodbine is not of the same caliber of races and horses as Del Mar and Santa Anita, for example. I think there's an inherent sense that those are quote unquote cheaper horses. Now, I happen to love Woodbine racing. I wish they took Fort Erie down here in Las Vegas, but they don't. I don't know. I think now what would I need to bet this horse? Well, my line is 7-1. The target is 19-1. You see that value capper price? So yeah, something in the 15 to 20-1 range before I'd get interested in betting this. If I don't get a price, if this horse is laying up there 6-1 or something, I'm not going to bet it just because, well, this is the horse that should win. I'm not interested in who should win. I'm interested in making a good value bet. Of course, would I like it to win like Champagne Room won last year at $69 that I had on my Breeders' Cup ring? Yeah, sure. Gumdrops and lollipops. It would be lovely. So those 2 races are pretty to me, right now, sitting here several days before the Breeders' Cup with no scratches, no idea of weather changes, Piedi Bianchi in the 4th race and Amy's Mesa in the 6th race. Now, you know what's going to come up now, right? It's another big old fat pass race. And that's because the 2, the 3, the 5, the 10, the 11, the 14, these are foreign horses with no numbers. Well, in the case of the 11, I think it has 2 races at Woodbine. Yeah, both at 1.25 miles. But if you look at the others, you know, we have to just go down and look at the 2, Senya, the 5, Lita. There's no ratings for these. Birdie Gold. I just can't handle, literally, I can't get numbers on this because I deal in pace. Pace deals on incremental velocity. Incremental velocity is dependent upon having internal fractions. I don't have them. So that is a pass race for me. Now, this is a race I always look forward to. This is Del Mar Race 8. It is the Breeders' Cup Sprint. If I'm being technical, I believe it's the Twin Spires Breeders' Cup Sprint. The reason I like this is I like pressured races. And I've cut my teeth at Belmont, so I'm used to seeing horses come off the pace. Here's the rub with this race. First of all, positionally, it's highly pressured. But from a velocity point of view, and I don't want to get into a long explanation. It would take me way too long. It's kind of a neutral race. And from that perspective, the 8, Roy H., the 10, Imperial Hint, and the 2, Dre Fong, are pretty much the morning line favorites right there. So I think there might be, they are the 3 morning line favorites, so I kind of agree with them. They may say, well, the 10 and the 2 are off layoffs. Once again, we have two horses that do pretty well off layoffs. The 10 shows a couple of wins off layoffs. The 2 shows a win, 2 wins off layoffs. So I'd have no problem with them. The value horse, if you will, the potential would be on this 9, Ransom the Moon. Certainly it can close. It's 1-for-1 at Del Mar, which was at 6 furlongs. That was back in July, where it came just off the pace and won. So would I bet this? Well, if I got an enormous price, say 20-1, sure. I would not make this a primary bet, not because it's 20-1. One of those other horses near the top of the line. But I've got 3 horses on top of this horse. And yeah, you can say the 2 and the 8 are on layoffs, and therefore the 2 and the 10 rather are on layoffs. Therefore, you should bet the 9 because why not? Especially at a long price. About the only thing I would say is the very top horse is Roy H., which won that Grade 1 at Santa Anita on October the 7th at 6 furlongs. Pretty good. Ransom the Moon finished 5.5 lengths before that, and this horse was on a layoff when it did that. So this might be a reversal. Okay, so I would make maybe a secondary bet on this 9, but look, I've got to get somewhere around 20-1 even to begin that. And if I do, I would have a 9-8 exacta box and a 9-8 straight. Why 9-8 straight? Well, the 8 is the reversal winner. They often run second. So, not the strongest of races, but it could be a decent secondary bet. And even a secondary bet, I'm going to want a really nice price. Moving on to race 9, and we see Consider Passing. We see 5 unknowns. I'm not going to get into it again. Just the 4, the 6, the 8, the 9, the 10, the 12, the 14. Either no races or very few rateable races. People say, Michael, what do you do in a bet like that? I don't know. World Approval is right on top of the line on a layoff. Then you've got Balarox and you've got Ohm, and they're 12-1, 20-1 morning line. You want to hook those up and hook them up with the 3 and the 4, 30-1 and 20-1, some bombs that have a shot just to have a bet, sure. You want to take little tiny little trifectas or supers? Sure. As a serious bet, no, I'm sorry. For me, it's a pass race. Again, I can't apologize. This is the hand I was dealt. So if you look at the Del Mar 10th race, which is the Sentient Jet Breeders' Cup Juvenile, this is one of those where it's way too closely matched. So the top of the line is this 11, Bolt d'Oro. Now, Bolt d'Oro is 3 for 3 lifetime. It's 2 for 2 at Del Mar. Now, about tied for it is this 6-horse, Good Magic. Now, Good Magic's had 2 races. It was second in the Champagne last time. That's a very hard race. That Champagne was won, by the way, by Fiorenzi Fire, which is also in this race. So I've got a very closely matched race. The one indication of a potential value is the 12, Hollywood Star, coming off a layoff. Absolutely nothing wrong with this other than that I have 3 horses on top of it, including the morning line favorite right on top. Now, Bolt d'Oro, this is a highly pressured race, so I'd be looking for a closer. Certainly Hollywood Star is a closer. Bolt d'Oro, 2 of its wins right on the pace. One of its wins, it came from second last to win. You see that second race back there, when it won the Del Mar Futurity? So, Good Magic can come off the pace. Salomini, short closer, Hollywood Star. If I got 20 to 1 on Hollywood Star, maybe. If I got 20 to 1 on Good Magic, maybe. In my mind, this is too closely matched a race. I mean, just look at the odds line. 6 to 1, 7 to 1, 8 to 1, 8 to 1, 8 to 1, 9 to 1, 10 to 1, 11 to 1. I don't have a whole lot of extras on any of the horses. So, sure, small action bet on the 12. I hate to say action bet, recreational bet because it's Breeders' Cup, have fun. As a main bet, I would have to pass because there's just nothing that sticks out as being outstanding. I don't really have a problem with Hollywood Star being on a layoff, only because, from Saratoga, the Saratoga Special, Grade 2, it finished second. No, nothing wrong with that. This is a very nice colt. Again, I'd have to get at least 20 to 1 on this colt, and I have a feeling I might not. I have a feeling they're going to bet Hollywood Star, the Dale Romans trained colt, and I'd be looking for 10 to 1. Not to bet it, but my sense is it's going to be closer to 10 to 1 than it is going to be 20 to 1, and I need around 20 to 1 to bet this horse. In the Longines Breeders' Cup Turf, and again, sorry, but this is a pass race for me for 2 reasons. Number one, it's 1.5 miles on the turf. It's a very hard race for a pace handicapper to get a good, hold on. The 1, the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, and the 9 have very few or no rateable races, like Talismanic. So what am I going to do? It's all these races in France that have no internal fractions. If you look at the 3, we've got Highland Reel, another Aidan O'Brien trained horse. No ratings that I can go by. And I'm going to let this go. Now, if, my Aunt Tilly came up to me and said, Michael, should I bet? Well, I got the 11 and the 14 at the top of the line, and they're 15 and 10 to 1. Put $2 on each of them, Aunt Tilly. Who should I use in the trifecta? Well, you've got horses coming out of those reversal races, the 12 and the 7, and throw the 2 in for good measure on a cheap superfecta box, and there you go. But seriously, this is a quick pass race for me. Now, this makes me a little sad. The Breeders' Cup Classic 1.25 miles on the dirt, the Del Mar 12th race on November 4th. And why it makes me sad, one of my favorite colts is running, and that is Arrogate. Now, why is it favorite to me? Well, last year, Arrogate won the Travers, and you could see that race down there. and paid $25.40, as I recall. Oh yeah, 11.70 to 1. Okay, 24, yeah, 25.40. What was sweet was that I did one of these value capping video rants for the Travers in 2016. You can go look; it's on YouTube, and I named Arrogate. You know, if you go back to the races from November 3rd, if you look at Del Mar Race 9, so that's the first day of the Breeders' Cup this year, November 3rd, 2017. In the 9th race, in the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff, where there's no value, as I see, one of the horse fillies in the race is Champagne Room. And, you know, it's just lovely when things happen. Last year, she paid 69 and change, 69.20, I think. And this was a video I made, one of the video value capping rants. So I never know when a bomb like that is going to happen, and when Arrogate is going to pay, for Jiminy's sakes, $25 to win, and doing it days in advance and on video. And, you know, it's great. Do I expect it? No, I'm betting price horses. So you don't need many of those to make up for all the losses and then some. But to get back to the Classic, the public's got this right. This is a 2-horse race between Gunrunner and Arrogate. Arrogate's got a warm spot in my heart because of that. But, I mean, look at Gunrunner. 10 wins out of 17 starts. You've got Arrogate, 7 wins out of 10 starts. The last 2 races at Del Mar were not that great. But if you wanted to look, really wanted to look, you might look at Pavel. This would have to be a huge price. I mean, I think Pavel is going to try to wire this field. It should have the lead, and it does at both calls in acupressure. So the 10 should break right out there. You've got War Story. That's a huge price. Unlike the other layoff horses we have, it has not been too successful after layoffs. I mean, win the space. Why? And this is something that I see a lot of players do. They start looking at the price horses. Look, you did all this work. And in my case, I built this software, designed this software. I've been working on these numbers for 30 years. I've got 2 really strong horses in the race, and they don't happen to be a price. So what do? Well, if you're the average kind of stage 1 handicapper, you say, well, let me see where the prices will be, and let me see if I can make a case for them. No. Look, those are the good horses. You can't, just because you have good numbers and you want to bet value, it doesn't mean there's going to be good value bets in every race. Some races, the public will get it right, and this is one of them. Okay, end of sermon. I told you I'd keep it short. So a couple of speculative bets in the Friday Breeders' Cup races on November 3rd. The undercard race, the 3rd race, with that Karma horse right on top. I know it's got Karma in the name. I just can't remember. It's New Karma, I guess, right on top. And on the Saturday Breeders' Cup races, I'm going to look very hard at the 8-horse Piedi Bianchi in the Del Mar 4th. That's on Saturday, November 4th. Taking it, good 8-9 to 1, somewhere in that range. Of course, I prefer something like 10 to 1, 8 to 1. I'd, think about it. 6 to 1, obviously not, because I wouldn't have an overlay. And in the Del Mar 6th race, which is the filly and mare sprint, I'm really looking to Amy's Mesa to be ready off the layoff. And, I'd look to got to have something like 15, 20 to 1 to bet this filly. But, she looks like she might be a really fine value bet. Sorry, I don't have value bets in the, marquee races, the Turf and the Breeders' Cup Classic. But like in poker, you got to play the cards you're dealt. These are the cards I dealt. This is how I would play them. I hope that you have enjoyed this analysis of the races. Well, I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful and instructional and give you an idea about the value capping process. For those of you who don't have ValueCapper, don't know much about value capping, I've got a free course for you on ValueCapper.com, the Value Capping Revolution Basic Training Course. at www.valuecapper.com. It's I've gotten such great feedback on it. I think you'll enjoy it. For those of you who do have ValueCapper, first of all, thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for the great letters, emails, personal messages, testimonials. I'm so thrilled that you're finding it useful, and I hope you found this instructional about how quickly you can go through the races, how you can make little calls in the past performances. Most of all, thank you for your support. A special shout out to the family at the Wizards Forum. This is a group of people who support each other in their work in finding good value bets. It's just phenomenal. Can't say thank you enough. And to all of you, thank you so much for letting me spend this time with you. Thank you for watching. Good luck on Breeders' Cup Day. And remember, please wait for your prices and wait for that felt sense of the bet making you. Until next time, this is Michael Pizzolla. See you soon.